Good morning, Grand Rising, and welcome to Wake Up with Sonia Poulton and guests. Good morning, beautiful people. We are live.
The sun is rising, the sky is blue. Good morning, Grand Risings, let's see what's new. It's that time of day for Sonia and crew. Good morning, Grand Risings. It's time
Good morning.
to wake up with Sonia Poulton.
It really is indeed. Good morning, Grand Rising to you. It is exactly 9 a.m. British summertime. Welcome to Wake Up with Sonia Poulton and guests. Welcome to the show that knows your government lies, corruption is rife, legacy media is a lie dressed up with excellent production. Most people don't know the names of the truly powerful. Madeleine McCann was not abducted. Men cannot be women and vice versa. You're not sick, you're being poisoned, and other such truths that my guests and I will speak, and with gusto, over the next couple of hours or so. This is Wake Up, such a raw and authentic news experience. Even I, your host, have no idea what is happening from one moment to the next. We do news different around here. And you know why? Because someone had to. And that someone is me. How are you? Thank you for being here. I truly appreciate it. Good morning, all the wonderful people in the chat. Truther, 3 a.m. Central Standard Time, USA. I think, did I see Wade saying it was 6 p.m. Australia time? Good morning, Grand Rising. Morning, Bethany. Morning. Good morning. Michelle is in Victoria, Australia. Sandra is in Germany. Peeps, while you're there, right? While you're there in all those beautiful far-flung places, always feel free to know. Listen, open invitation. If you ever want to join me on the live stream and report what is going on in your part of the world, I would be more than happy to host you. Please see that as an open invitation. And if you're up for it, contact me at soniapoulton@sky.com. How are you all? Good morning, Colin and Sue and Fazana. How are you? And Vanessa and Dr. Robert and Lisa and Lenticular Cloud and Jan and Synchronized Soul and Shin and Mels and Catherine and on and on. Good morning, Josie. Lovely Josie. I met Josie. And Randy and Drumstick. Drum, did I see you say it was a bank holiday for you? Happy bank holiday, sweetheart. On today's Wake Up, we have Phil Wiseman from Oracle Films. They've produced The Agenda, new film. I've been watching it. Many of you have contacted me saying, it'd be a really good idea to talk to the people behind it. Well, we are. We're also going to talk to Mark Sharman, who has produced that film. I'll also be joined by Jason Noble from In One Place. Have you heard of it? It's a new way for people to promote what they do and to gather, a kind of social media with bells on. And Bilderberg is this week, that super secret society that they try and tell us isn't secret, even though they all adhere to Chatham House rules, which means that they are not allowed to identify who says what at these meetings. That sounds a little bit secretive to me, right? Also, Trump has sent in the National Guard into LA. The Gaza Freedom Flotilla has been intercepted. You're not shocked. Starmer's fire starters have been in court. Parliament today will debate non-stun slaughter of animals. Madeleine McCann's search ended early. Musk-Trump fallout continues. Of course it does. And Biles versus Gaines kicked off over the weekend. We'll get an update from the Diddy court and why it's sometimes necessary to say IDGAF. You know what that means, right? I don't give a. Sometimes it's necessary to do that. And we'll be ending with that. Just to say, did you receive notifications this morning? So I've been talking to YouTube, trying to work out what's happening. And I've been asked to issue these following instructions. Ask viewers to use the notifications troubleshooter if they aren't getting notifications. Check your settings. YT, want that checked first before it progress to find out why people aren't receiving notifications for my channel. Have you received notifications this morning, people? Yes, Darren. IDGAF. Yep, got notified. Perfect. My God, it might already be working. It might already be working. Thank you so much. Wonderful to hear it. Wonderful to hear it. World's a stage, y'all. So say it away. It is indeed. And we are going to be covering much of that stage. And where do we start? Well, I think many of you know Trump has sent the National Guard into LA over the weekend. This is to do with his ICE deportations. There were clashes on Friday and Saturday between federal officers and protesters. National Guard troops arrived in LA. And what do we know, really? This is about deporting people who were oftentimes born in the US. Right? This one is particularly pertinent. Born and raised in Los Angeles. Deport me. Where are you going to deport me to? Back to the hood. And obviously very violent clashes, lots of vehicles on fire. You don't send in the National Guard to play games. This is for riots and containment. And I think Trump has plenty on his plate, not least the issues going on with Elon Musk. And as Shin pointed out to me this morning, did he make an admission that he was involved with Nord Stream in the Oval Office last week? I briefly looked at that video, Shin, and he appeared to be. Yes, he did. So Trump has ordered the arrest of everyone in face masks and says, bring in the troops, as LA burns after protests. And Governor Gavin Newsom shared a very different perspective, as you might imagine. We didn't have a problem until Trump got involved, Newsom said. This is a serious breach of state sovereignty, inflaming tensions while pulling resources from where they're actually needed. These are the acts of a dictator, not a president. And the mayor, Karen Bass, echoed similar sentiments. Former Vice President Kamala Harris joined in with the sort of Democrat pile on Saturday and Sunday. And it's horrible scenes, really, really horrible scenes. It's not really something that I can personally support. But this is interesting. DNS, that's right. Trump was not president when Nord Stream exploded. Dems were, absolutely. But did you hear that comment? He said, I ended it. That's what he said. I ended it, right? I don't know where the settings for notifications are, Shalini. I'm sorry. Yes, Gavin and Bass are. Yes, they are, Craig. They're not necessarily great people. Absolutely not. Governor Gavin Newsom was absolutely behind the whole C-19 narrative, but then so was a godfather of the vaccination, wasn't he? So a bit difficult. He said he made up the plan and Biden carried it out, is what Trump said. Is that what he was saying? Right. Okay. America voted for illegals to be removed, said Truther. Well, some of them aren't illegal. Some of them were literally born there. And if they're born then surely they have a right to be there, right? But that's true. That is actually true. That is what Americans voted for. They knew what they were getting with Trump. That is his big ticket. That is the reality. So you're right, Truther. Absolutely. Right. What else? Freedom Flotilla. I'm sure you've all heard of that. That's getting very, very busy. Kind of, I suppose, I don't think it's accurate to say led by, but obviously she's probably the most famous, Greta Thunberg. Freedom Flotilla, which was heading to Gaza with supplies, been intercepted by Israel. None of you are surprised, none at all. Obviously, activist Greta Thunberg and a French lawmaker are among 12 people on board the Madeleine. Thunberg says they have now been kidnapped. Israeli forces intercepted the yacht carrying activists, and a quantity of humanitarian aid was trying to reach the Gaza Strip. Israel's foreign ministry has been very scathing, branding it a selfie yacht carrying less than a single truckload of aid. I'm not quite sure what is going on right now with them. They literally do appear to have been kidnapped. Yes, they do. Jan says, about Greta got a proper job instead of doing stunts. Now, the thing is, Jan, I didn't agree with all Greta's climate change nonsense, but I do agree with this. But again, this goes back to what we talked before, and that is people are never, you can't, I mean, me personally, I'm kind of over the whole purity spiral thing, because like you like somebody for this, but you don't like somebody for that. And people subject me to that as well. And it can be quite tricky. It's like, do we ever progress if we demand to agree with somebody 100%? Because I definitely don't agree with Thunberg 100%, but I do agree with her doing this. I think this is exactly what she should be using her name for. She has a big name. The world's press get interested. And also, why are British taxpayers paying for spy planes to be flown over Gaza? What's going on there? Is this an attempt to warn off Israel? I don't know. What has been going on? Very interesting. So, but all I know is that the UK government sent a spy plane over Gaza at the same time as the Madeleine. Don't know. Sandy said, but is this just another act? It could well be, but does it matter? And Craig said, yeah, imagine not being allowed to help starving people. Yes, indeed. But I take all your point as well. Yeah. You know, bread, circuses, and all that sort of stuff. We know it. We see it constantly. So obviously, I think that's a story that will continue to develop today. I think so too. Quick look at this. 3 men linked to Ukraine and accused of a series of arson attacks on houses and a vehicle in London connected to British Prime Minister Keir Starmer. They will now stand trial in April 2026. They were in court on Friday. And they appeared at the Old Bailey via video link from HMP Belmarsh, although Petro Pochinok, who's also charged with the attacks, refused to leave his cell for the hearing. I don't understand how law works like that, how people can refuse to leave their cell for hearings and convictions. I just don't. I know it's all about kind of human rights and everything, but if you're charged with a serious crime, surely you should be forced to face it, right? Whether you're innocent or guilty. I just don't understand that ruling at all. Don't get it. But anyway, so basically all kicked off early hours of May the 12th. Actually, it started days earlier than that, on May the 8th. When a Toyota RAV4, which had once belonged to Keir Starmer, before he sold it to a neighbour, was torched on the same street. There was a property torched in Kentish Town. A separate blaze was set on May the 11th, front door of a converted house in Islington, where the Labour leader had lived. One person had to be rescued by firefighters after that attack. Thankfully, nobody was hurt in any of those incidences. The PM branded the arson attacks as an attack on all of us, on democracy and the values that we stand for. Well, it will be interesting to see if the courts agree that this is actually an attack on all of us, or the Prime Minister in particular. Ask him for a friend. Ask him for a friend. And what else? Competition winner of John Waters' great book, absolutely brilliant, The Abolition of Reality, a first draft of the end of history. And the competition winner is Siobhan Mackenzie in Glastonbury. Congratulations, Siobhan. John has told me it's on its way to you. Absolutely wonderful. She said, amazing. Thank you so much. Made my day. Wonderful to hear it. And thank you again for all your lovely messages, which I read after the competition. So you know that I am not swayed by your kind and supportive words, but I do love receiving them. Thank you so very, very much. And what else do I want to talk about before I bring in our first guest? Oh, yes, Parliament debate non-stun slaughter of animals today. UK government are up to their eyeballs. They're compromised. I cannot see this occurring. I cannot see them outlawing this in any way at all. Jamie Stone is the Lib Dem MP for Caithness, Sutherland and Easter Ross. He's been an MP since June 2017. He's heading up this motion. We shall see. It's in response to an online petition which received in excess of 109,000 signatures. If you get 100,000, then you're supposed to qualify for parliamentary debate. Parliamentary debate can mean just about anything these days. It can mean one person who's leading it showing up and nobody else. It'll be interesting to see how many people will be there. And so the idea, of course, is that halal and kosher killings would be outlawed in the UK. Well, I'm here to tell you, if that happens, I will struggle to believe it. I will struggle to believe it because both of the groups involved have sway in the UK. Muslims and Jews, absolutely both. The government say they would prefer all animals to be stunned before slaughter. However, we respect the rights of Jews and Muslims to eat meat prepared in accordance with their religious beliefs. Everybody knows me around here. I don't disrespect people because they're religion, even though I'm not religious. But I don't respect anybody who eats meat that is done in a non-stun slaughter. In fact, I'm not a meat eater, as people know. I try not to be a born-again non-meat eater because they're just really boring. And I believe that people have to find their own way. But I think that us allowing kosher and halal is just kind of unconscionable, frankly. I can't see it either. Ven signed it. And I just can't see it. I just can't see it happening. I think that this is just, they're just having this debate because obviously the signatures got over the certain mark, but also to make it look as if something's happening. And we're quite used to that sort of thing, aren't we? Make it look as if something is happening. Right. Talking about which, to make it look as if something is happening, the Madeleine McCann search ended early. In Praia da Luz last week. I was very scathing of it, as you know, many people know. I've been to the scene of crime on 2 occasions. I've followed the story since the beginning. I've made 2 documentaries. The abduction story simply doesn't add up, as Portuguese police knew at the beginning. Anyway, the search ended early. It ended on Thursday. It was really led by German police, and in particular Hans Wolters, who is the German prosecutor and is absolutely desperate to make Christian Bruckner the man responsible for taking Madeleine McCann. And very clearly, Christian Bruckner is a horrible, reprehensible, foul, disgusting individual. Every description I can humanly come up with. But one thing I'm absolutely certain of is he didn't take Madeleine McCann, and they know it. They haven't got any evidence. 5 years now, they've tried everything, and they were searching old farmhouse, scrubland, various other things. And after all these years, they're trying to throw new theories up into the pot rather than follow the original really strong evidence, right? So the new theories, right, is because they think we're fools, because by and large, media are completely complicit in this story. And one person who's come out and spoken out about it is Mark Williams-Thomas. Not a great fan of his. He got involved in this story really early and tried to take it in a direction that actually was not supported by evidence, although he may disagree with that. But he's now saying that he also felt that this search with, I think it was like 30 German police officers were involved in it. He's now saying that it was just pointless, absolutely ridiculous. There were other stories, other leads to follow. And one of the ones that he's pushed before is this whole idea that Madeleine left the apartment on her own. And lo and behold, new theory pops up. It's not being pushed by him instantly. It's more people coming forward saying things. And now this whole idea is that it was a German woman and a British man, both of them drunks, knocked Madeleine over in a car. And the word is that German police refused to investigate these people. One of them is now dead. And we've heard this story before. We heard that Madeleine had left apartment 5A, wandered down the road. There was road work. She fell into some road works, and then whatever they did, carried on with the road works. They covered her up. We've heard all of that. It simply doesn't, the evidence doesn't support any of these things. Anybody who's been through the Portuguese police files, and I have, and many people have, they're pretty certain they know what happened to Madeleine McCann. And the sad truth is, it is highly likely, unfortunately, that Madeleine McCann never left apartment 5A alive. And that is what the evidence would suggest. And that is Martin Grimes and his elite cadaver dogs. And they detected that there was an issue that has never been dealt with. And then the Forensic Science Service seemed to lose quite valuable DNA, and all manner of things happened, a lot of jiggity-pokery. And here we are, many years later, at least 14 million in the hole for British taxpayers for a crime that didn't happen in this country. And this is no disrespect to Madeleine McCann, but as we know, one child goes missing every 5 minutes, and many of them return. Sometimes they just go missing for a few hours or 24 hours. Many of them return. But the fact is, why we focus on just one child is absolutely absurd, and it's unfair. And again, no disrespect to her. It is not her fault that she was let down. But Hans Wolters, the German prosecutor, is pathetic. He has an embarrassing obsession with Christian B. His fear is that Christian B will be released in September, because that's what's going to happen. And he's desperate to attach Madeleine McCann's name to this very reprehensible individual. And it's appalling. And Operation Grange, the British investigation, must end. The answer to what happened to Madeleine McCann is much closer to home. And the people who were there must be properly investigated. Operation Grange ruled them out from the beginning. It is a known fact that when children go missing, it is highly likely that it is people who know the child. Now, this is not to accuse anybody. It's to say, why would the British investigation openly and knowingly rule out the people who were there right from the start of the investigation? It's not okay. And there's a new guy in town, by the way. Watch some of this Operation Grange way. Brilliant stuff. I don't know if anybody's seen it, but he's kind of inspired by profiler Pat Brown, who I've interviewed in my documentaries, has a lot of praise for her work. And this British guy's gone over to Praia da Luz and he's searching in the area where Bernd Stallander, the foreign detective, said Madeleine was buried. And he's kind of come to the conclusion that many people have, that Madeleine probably was not buried where Bernd says he was. M says, talk about this being a long con. Indeed. Let us talk to some people who are going to bring us back to what's really going on. Ask the dogs, Sandra, says Synchronized Souls. Indeed. Ask the dogs. Right. I want to bring in my first two guests this morning. Let's do it, shall we? We have Mark Sharman. Good morning, Mark. How are you?
Good morning, Sonia. I'm absolutely fine. Thank you.
Good to have you with us. And also Phil Wiseman from Oracle Films. Good morning, Phil. How are you?
Morning, Sonia. I'm good. Thanks. How are you?
Wonderful. I'm very good. Thank you. Thank you both for being here with me. Very much appreciate it. You are, of course, the people behind the agenda, their vision, your future. And can everybody stop emailing me now? I have them on the screen. OK, the people involved are on the screen. And let's talk about it. The agenda, their vision. This isn't the first time you guys have worked together, is it? Because you worked together, I think, on the film that was, excuse me, presented by John Bowe, which that's correct, isn't it, Phil?
That's right. Yeah, Safe and Effective, a Second Opinion, which was, I think, September 22 we did, which was, sort of showcasing the realities of the COVID so-called vaccine and the unfortunate consequences to the injured and bereaved from that. So that was the first time Mark and I worked together. And kind of knew that we wanted to do something else. And that's sort of, I guess, it's gradually manifested into what we're here today to talk about.
It makes absolute sense. It's a natural conclusion from your first film. So, Mark, you have produced this. How did you get involved and why, really? Because obviously, just to give everybody an overview, this is the agenda, their vision, your future is a film and the contents of which we discuss a lot around here. Agenda 2030, United Nations Sustainable Goals, WEF, central bank digital currency, and it covers it all in such a brilliant way. It's a wonderful film. I highly recommend it. So, Mark, tell us about your involvement, because you're originally a Sky man, aren't you?
Is that a compliment or a condition?
Oh, I'm not sure.
Sorry, I've got something like a 58-year career. I've worked everywhere except the BBC, actually. We saw a presentation by Sandy Adams, the researcher who's been talking about Agenda 30 for a long time. And it just seemed right to follow it up. So we began by thinking we were going to do a film about Sandy's presentation, but of course it grew and grew and grew. I mean, this has taken the best part of 2 years to come to fruition. But the more we discovered, the bigger the film became. And interestingly, while we were making it, we asked ourselves several times, can this really be true? Are we going too far? By the time we put it out, the timing is almost perfect. Lots of the things we pointed out are beginning to come through to fruition. It's very ironic, by the way, that today is the anniversary of the publication of 1984.
Right. Was it yesterday or today? Is it today? Well, it's one of them anyway. You're absolutely right.
Let's say it's now.
Yes, that will do. That will do nicely. And but yes, you're absolutely right. It is ironic. And of course, the film, I don't want to give away any great clues about it, but it's so well done. But a lot of it is, I think, largely built around the whole climate change narrative. And it's ironic in some respects that we're having this conversation on YouTube, which is extremely totalitarian about certain issues. Phil, for example, when you were just discussing Safe and Effective, I was ready to leap in and say, remember, we're on YouTube. And that is also where we are in terms of like 1984. The agenda could not have come at a better time. You're absolutely right. Phil, tell me about Oracle's work in this. So who came up with the idea of the guests? Obviously, Sandy Adams in there, brilliant Dr. David Hughes, so many great people. But tell me about the background and how it all came together.
I mean, it was, as Mark said, it's something that sort of scaled. So it started with Sandy, and Sandy Adams does a lot of great work with UK Column, and UK Column hold a lot of events around the country. And it was through one of those events that I saw a presentation by Aman Jabi, who's a whistleblower from Silicon Valley, who's got a big section in the film talking about the digital prison. So essentially, the more people that we approached, the more people said, well, I'll be in it, but you need to speak to this person. So when we approached Catherine Austin Fitts, for example, she said, yeah, I'm happy to talk about technocracy, but if you're doing this, you need to speak to David Hughes. And that was our introduction to him. And he was fantastic. And again, somebody I've discovered in the process of making this film. And there's a lot of people that are doing a lot of good work. And again, that's not just limited to the people that are in this film, but we've tried to, bring people in that are speaking to each area of expertise that Agenda 2030 addresses, which is effectively all aspects of society.
It's really,
somebody
Mark.
made a good point that we've been talking about lots of these particular aspects, but this is the first time that anybody's joined the dots, and that's exactly what I tried to do.
And I think that's the power of it, but also the power of it, and I don't need to tell any of you this, is that the production is excellent. And we do need that, because in order to be able to compete, we have to be up there as well, competing with people in legacy media, because their turnout largely is excellent production. And oftentimes the content is seriously lacking. But you've managed to bring it all together here. And Catherine is particularly interesting. She actually says, if you know their name, they're not at the top, which is so brilliant, because that is the reality, isn't it? There are people who are demonized, or people that we go, oh, it must be Bill Gates, or it must be Larry Fink, or whatever. But that your film goes behind that and shows that the power is not right in front of our face. Who would like to pick up that point?
Well, it's interesting when you say that, again, looking at what's happening in America right now, because on the surface, I think a lot of people in America are under the assumption that Donald Trump is fighting against a lot of the globalist forces that we're talking about in this film. When you look at who is actually pulling the strings and his administration, for example, somebody like Peter Thiel at Palantir, all roads would appear to lead back to Bilderberg, right? So I don't know for sure what Trump's intentions are. I think there's a lot of people giving their opinion on either side. And for multiple reasons, we kind of steered clear of American politics in this film, because one thing is playing out in real time, and it was so challenging to draw a line under this film. Like, for example, somebody said to me the other day, why didn't you speak about geoengineering, right? So people they've acknowledged that this is happening. And the real reason is that we'd drawn a line under it, and it was picture locked before those headlines started coming out. So it wasn't not only that, but it's already, I think, bordering on too long, so that, there was only so much we could really fit in. But there's a lot to be said for that. And this is happening in many forms, but the personnel are the same. If you go high enough up, all roads would appear to lead back to the same people.
They would indeed. And Mark, I think it's really interesting what Dr. David Hughes says. He's a regular guest around here, absolutely brilliant man. And what he says is now is the time to change, because the system is in crisis and has been since 2019, which gave me a great deal of hope, actually. What did you interpret from that?
Well, I think he was talking about the world monetary system, wasn't he? The fiat currency. And this is at the core of a lot of it for me. If the currency system at the moment is about to collapse, which is what David and one or two other financial experts have said, it's got to be replaced, and it appears to be a system of credits based on natural assets, which is why it's so important for the world to believe that climate change is real. To find a world solution, you need a world problem. And right. Climate change over the last 50 years has grown and grown and grown, and we've now got generations of children have been raised believing it's real, when in fact there has been no proper debate. Nearly all the policy comes from the IPCC, which is fundamentally a political organization. And you look at the United Nations, and one of their special envoys on climate and climate finance is Mark Carney. Well, he's the very man that's been pushing for a change to the fiat system. He's the one that recognizes, or one of the men that recognizes, that the fiat system is coming to a close. Well, there has to be a conflict of interest if somebody is pushing for a system based on natural assets and at the same time crashing on about climate change. The two should be uncoupled, and there should be a really proper, heavy debate on the science. Because as as we say in the film, Chris Morrison from the Daily Skeptic says in the film, there isn't a single science paper that supports that carbon dioxide and greenhouse gases are causing a crisis. And far from it. As you know, the world needs carbon dioxide to survive. Nothing grows without it. By the way, I talked about the timing. It's very interesting that at the moment, you know, as Phil said, in the States, they're closing in on citizen identity. And here, the same thing is happening. There's a new document out from what's called the Labour Together, which is a Labour Party think tank, which is about, it's called the Brit Card, a progressive digital identity for Britain. And it's all about putting all your details onto one card. And of course, the interesting line is that how well designed digital credentials can help tackle illegal migration privately, securely, and fairly. Well, here we go again. Create a problem, come up with a solution. And
exactly.
It's been so obvious to me for a while that with all, you know, the one thing that people get uptight about in this country, and if you notice, two of the national newspapers today are stoking it up again, you know, 4.7 billion a year, you need 600,000 people's worth of tax to pay for it, is the Sun story today. As the story builds up, the problem builds up, and hey, here's a solution, we'll put everybody on digital IDs. But as Ammon Jabi's chapter in the film shows, you know, digital ID is fraught with danger. It's like someone giving you a piece of paper and writing every single detail about yourself, every personal detail, every intimate detail, as well as your health and your financial details, and giving that piece of paper to everybody in London to read. It's just, there is no privacy going forward, no privacy, no autonomy, and it's a very, very dangerous situation.
Well, if I could just add slightly to that. I mean, there's people, and they're already trying to gaslight people and say, well, you know, it's not that big a deal. It's just like a digital version of a passport or a driver's license. You know, what's the problem? I would say, if you want to test that theory, refuse it. Even if you're going to get one, even if you're convinced, like, yep, you're going to get one, refuse it temporarily and see what happens. Because I guarantee you, they'll start making your life difficult. And if it's something that's benign, they wouldn't need you to coerce you to get it. So even if you think you're going to get it, refuse it for a while and see what happens to you.
Within the document I've just mentioned, you know, they mention the right to work, the right to rent property, the right to buy this, the right to buy that. Right. And unless you've got the digital ID, you can't do it. Well, okay, so we're on a carbon credit system now, and your carbon credits are up. Suddenly you can't do anything. You can't travel, you can't buy the right food. You have to do what they say. I mentioned George Orwell earlier on. Actually, the current situation, as we say in the film, is more akin to Aldous Huxley in A Brave New World.
Oh, yes, that's it. Yes, exactly.
Because what they've done, you know, they are presenting everything as an advantage and a help, and for your safety and convenience. And of course, in Huxley's book, it's all about winning people over with drugs and entertainment. Right. You know, it's very, very close to home.
It really is. And you're absolutely right. There's so much that has already come to pass. And yes, Phil, you have to stop it somewhere. It's already, I think, 1 hour, 50 minutes or something, isn't it? So I understand. But I don't think anything there is baggy. There's clearly no fillers. It works beautifully. It's seamless in its own respect. And you do cover so much, including obviously WHO, pandemic treaty, disease X, etc. But there's one segment that actually gave me the shivers. And this was this whole idea of we are now in this zero trust society, because I see it all around me. My little Tesco and my little Sainsbury's out of nowhere suddenly have glass fronts around the counters. And that's what you're talking about, isn't it? Phil, do you want to pick that up?
Well, that's it. I mean, that was the same for me when I first saw Ammon Jabi give a presentation on that, and he talks about the zero trust protocol, and you realize that this is real. Like this is, you know, there's Microsoft security. This is a cybersecurity protocol that exists and is being scaled up. And when it reaches retail, when it reaches the point of a customer, that's what it's going to look like. Like, you're going to have to prove by means of a digital identity who you are. And simultaneously in doing that, your bank account will be accessed. And as we point out in the financial chapter just before that, it's not just what happens now. So you make a credit card transaction now or a debit card, and there's a point of communication whereby your bank says, do you have the money? That's the only sort of piece of information that's exchanged. Do you have the money? If so, it can go through. If not, it can't. You can be assessed under a CBDC and a digital ID situation on any criteria, and that can be altered going forwards forevermore. And that can be scaled up based on health records, based on social media posts, based on the criteria. It's endless. And as David Hughes points out, the potential for social control with this technology it's frightening. And people we're really at a precipice now where people have to say no to this. And the media is not going to tell them, for reasons that we point out in the film. Legacy media isn't going to tell you this stuff, because legacy media lie. We know that much, but they also lie by omission. They distort things, but they also don't tell you stuff. And we saw that during COVID, when those huge marches happened in London, for example.
Right.
Everybody that was there knows that they were peaceful, they were joyous, and there were hundreds of thousands of people there. If you watch legacy media, you didn't have a clue that they even happened.
Right. Or if you did, they were just a bunch of thugs. It was kind of like
Exactly.
the lead up to the far rights, wasn't it? Last year, that sort of thing. The other thing, of course, that we'd be completely remiss if we didn't touch on, that you absolutely tackle in the film, that I do talk a lot around here, and that is 2030, the 17. Oh, I've got the wrong image there. Forgive me. There it goes. Let's just add that. The Sustainable Development Goals, the SDGs, as they call them. And Mark, as you said, it's all tied up with such kind of noble causes, isn't it? End poverty, end racism. So obviously, what sort of awful person wouldn't support that? But as you point out in the film, there are a great deal of darker themes that exist behind these lovely little images on the screen. Mark, do you want to tell people a little bit more about 2030 from your position?
Well, the best thing to do is just quote Alex Newman, the American journalist from the film, because he says behind all these fuzzy slogans and warm and fuzzy ambitions, it's actually a blank check for control. If you dig into, I'm using his phrase actually, but if you dig into these goals, every one of them has a contradiction within it, and some of them contradict each other actually. But even down to your human rights. They're human rights as long as you agree with their agenda, and they can take your rights off of you. It's quite specifically said in the SDGs. You have to go into every one of them, which, to be honest, we didn't. We picked on some of the best examples, but Alex Newman is spent 15 years and more now, 17 years investigating it, and he says you have to learn UNEs to understand it. It's a concept.
There's a lot of inversion. And while you got them on the screen there, Sonia, I should point out, right, number 13 is climate action, right? So even if you believe that we're in a climate crisis, one of those goals is addressing climate change, right? Every other one is a justification to transform society.
Right.
So why would you do that? And so even if you believe that there is a climate crisis, this isn't the solution to it. This is a blank check for totalitarian control, I would argue. And it's time to start calling a spade with that.
Well, as you point out,
don't think you can say that anymore.
Well, you can on this show. You can on this show, Mark. But as you point out, what this actually is like a shifting of influence to all these unelected bodies, right? Which many people, because it does look all fuzzy and lovely, doesn't it? You look at this, you go, yeah, I want a bit of that. I want it to be a nicer, fairer world where we all get a bit of some. Sounds great. It's tied in with such noble goals. But there is also the issue that this is also linked to of like commodifying nature as well. You talk about that. You talk about the Rockefeller. I really, people, I cannot recommend this film highly enough. And they're absolutely right. What they do in this is not only a story well told with great contributors, but it does finally join the dots. And that's what we've needed, I think, for probably like the last 5 years for people to see where we're heading. So the other thing, of course, that we must talk about would be this man, his influence, his great influence. And I know that he's made way for a new person now, but that we shouldn't underestimate the influence of the World Economic Forum. Which one of you would like to pick that up?
Well, I think one of the dots that a lot of people have, certainly in the feedback I've got on the film, is actually that man's ties to somebody that most people don't appear to have ever even heard of, which is a man called Maurice Strong, who right in the early days was mentoring Klaus Schwab. And he was absolutely influential in getting the carbon dioxide narrative off the ground, going back to the 70s or even the 60s, rather, with the Club of Rome, as we point out, through to the Stockholm Conference in 72, where he chaired that, and all the way through, establishing the IPCC, etc. And whilst he's doing that throughout those decades, Klaus Schwab is building up the World Economic Forum. But as we point out, the two of them, they're interlocked and they're moving in tandem. And the World Economic Forum has done a very good job of consolidating the investments of basically every major corporation in the world when you look at who are listed as stakeholders in the World Economic Forum. So yeah, it's pretty frightening circumstances that we're looking at. And yes, Klaus has stepped down, but we know that he put in place, and he was a huge contributor to this agenda through the time. And it's just because he's gone that it's only going to ramp up from here, I think.
You will.
I think.
Go on, Mark.
I think Schwab actually gets too much credit. He's definitely the front man, but he's not the string puller. And if you look,
that is an important point that you do make. You do make that. Yes.
If you look through time, that there is Maurice Strong, Henry Kissinger, Klaus Schwab, and you could even look at Mark Carney and the jobs Mark Carney's had. Head of the
you
Bank
mean like a member
Canada.
of the Trilateral Commission?
Yes, head of the Bank of England, then off to work for Bloomberg and being a United Nations climate envoy, and now Prime Minister of Canada. You've got to have some brain to win all those jobs over there. I just think that these people they've got a machine behind them, and I think Schwab is very eloquent, and he's clearly done a lot of leadership. But is he the man in charge? No.
And I like that. I think it's really important. That goes back to what we said at the beginning, that Catherine talks about if you know their name, they're not at the top. Absolutely. But here's my concern, is that the film, and it's nothing to do with you, it's just where we are in our history. So the agenda paints this dystopian future, but it's one that's already with us, because as you point out, the control grid is already all around us, right? If we go into certain areas, we're being tracked and surveilled like, never, ever before. And the other thing that I didn't realize, and I think that people will find very interesting, is how far technocracy actually goes back. This is not just a recent invention with Mark Zuckerberg or Elon Musk or any of those people. This goes back an awful long way. And so I think really what I want to know is are we within time to turn everything around?
Good question. I think we are, but it's a bad situation, and it is going to require massive non-compliance on behalf of the people. I think if you're looking for a national government to be a solution to this, there's a lot of buzz around reform, there's a lot of buzz around Trump. The solution, if there is one, and I'm not selling hopium here, it's a bad situation. If we can do it, it's going to come bottom up, not top down. Okay, if reform are going to do good work, more power to them. But to sit around and wait for the Donald Trumps of the world, the Robert Kennedys of the world to try and fix this, we as the people need to start fighting this from the ground up. And there's some brilliant people doing some great work. I'll mention Rachel Matthews in Colchester, Council Watch. They're doing amazing work, talking to councils on a local level, because that's where this agenda starts. It reaches your neighborhood, not from a national level. It comes local and it goes up. So, I know there's a lot of apathy towards politics and people thinking it's no point, it's a dead end. But if enough people start speaking to their councillors and start a ground up piece of momentum, I think that's the only way it's going to happen. I think waiting around for a savior is not the way.
And central bankers, as you point out, are really the source of much of this problem. And also the other thing, again, I think that people don't realize is how far in advance all this is planned. This is not something they just decided to do in the 70s or 80s. Some of these plans are 100 years ahead. So I think that's quite an interesting mentality that takes place, because some of the people who were involved in creating these plans in the first place, they made plans presumably knowing that they wouldn't necessarily be around to see them come to fruition. What do you think about that, Mark? What do you think about the people who put these plans into place? Well,
some of it is an ideology which goes back to 1920s, 1930s. But I think the accelerator was probably in the 60s with the Club of Rome.
Right.
When I think when the foot went on the pedal a little bit. But I mean, to say these people, as Catherine Austin Fitz says, they've known for decades that one day the fiat currency would need replacing. So lots of things have been put in place. It doesn't mean it's all come to fruition, and doesn't mean it will. But the plan is there. I mean, it's a real worry. One of my favourite chapters in the film really is towards the end, when we talk about education and how universities and particularly schools have been infiltrated. And some of the pictures that Phil has dug out are school kids holding posters of the SDGs. And that's the trouble. You're dealing with probably 25, 30 years of indoctrination in the education system. And it's really hard to say to somebody, you've got it wrong, because they've absolutely been brainwashed with it. The whole power of critical thinking seems to have been taken out of the school system. The textbooks for geography, for instance, are all set on man-made climate change, and if you don't follow that, you won't pass your exam. It's a really it's been years and years and years in the making, this, and it won't be hard to break. And of course, the other thing is all this technology has become part of everyday life, because it has been introduced for convenience, for safety, for entertainment, and suddenly you're trapped, and it becomes a tool of control, which is only just around the corner, I feel.
We seem to be surrounded by it, don't we? We hear about, obviously, the influence of Palantir, not just in the USA, but in the UK, as one example, to do with the NHS. So we get a lot of it. And I think a lot of my viewers, we're desperate to be able to find a way to make this stop, because we can see it. And obviously, and that again is why your film has value, because there'll be a lot of people who will watch your film who wouldn't necessarily watch some alternative media, but they'll watch your film because it has that very professional kind of sheen to it, which is absolutely necessary, and it'll encourage people. We know how it works. We know appearances are really important, and so forth. So I believe that your film offers hope, which is really important. Phil, you did a tweet last night about how, let me just have a look at this. If you value independent media, you were talking about how this is decentralized distribution in action, the downloading of the film. So is that if people download directly from your website? Because obviously we want to encourage that as much as possible.
Yeah, well, as we saw during COVID, particularly, centralized platforms like YouTube, I mean, we had more content pulled off of YouTube than still there. So, and I think I don't know how long the film is going to stay up on YouTube. There are alternative platforms such as Rumble and others that have popped up as a response to that. But we've encouraged people for a multitude of reasons to download the film, and we've made it available for free. So, I should point out that Mark has put his hand in his pocket for this film, and we've made it at significant personal expense. Doesn't make a whole lot of business sense, I know, but such is the situation that we're in. So if people can go to theagendafilm.com, you can download the film for free, you can watch it, you can share it. And if you'd like to donate, there's a means to do that there as well, just to say thank you. If you're in a position to do that. I know it's not easy for people right now.
It's not easy for people right now, but there's a huge amount of work gone into this, as you say, at your own expense. So any help would absolutely be appreciated. Mark, what did you want to say? I was
just going to say, just to mention YouTube, they've done a very odd thing. They've crammed it with adverts. I mean, let me say it straight away. Oracle or myself, we do not benefit from that. That is all going to YouTube, and it's very annoying because it breaks up the continuity of the film and makes it even longer. That's what they've chosen to do with Safe and Effective. The minute it was mentioned in Parliament, it was taken down. YouTube took it down when it reached about 1 million views. This time, they've crammed it with ads to kind of make money.
But there are ways you can get around that. If you download a browser like Brave, which doesn't use has built-in ad blockers, you can get around that. I said those ads aren't benefiting us; they're not for our benefit. So
important for people to know that. I know, because sometimes people don't realize what goes into this and how much it takes from people. So look, I like to give my guests the last word, so please feel free. Mark, let's start with you. What's the kind of take-home message you want people to take from this?
Be aware and educate yourself on what's happening. Don't just accept that this technology is all for your benefit. The Catherine Austin Fitz says, they're going to control you with rules, and that means even us appearing on this, if there was a system of credit, we'd be downgraded.
Fact, absolute fact, shocking. Phil, over to you.
Well, on that note, well, I would say just get involved. This film, there'll be a lot of people in your audience, Sonia, that are aware of these issues. We didn't make this to preach to the converted. It's not there for your entertainment. This is there to hopefully reach people that might not have been aware of these issues, to pull a lot of these things together in one place. So please share it. I know it's hard to try and have these conversations with people that don't want to hear it. But also don't wait around, don't wait around for me and Mark to do something else. Get involved, make your own media, be the media, and in any way that you can, just try and combat this and stop complying with it. Because if in a decentralized way, people don't cooperate with this stuff, it can't happen.
Right.
If millions of people cease to cooperate with it, you can't police that. Because that we're talking about worldwide, and that's that might not sound like much, but that's kind of all we've got at this point, and we have to do that.
It's a brilliant period. I'm very happy to be living through this period, by the way. I think it's one of the most interesting periods in our history. But then I haven't lived before. So listen, thank you so much for being with us. I really appreciate it, everybody. Phil Wiseman, Mark Sharman from The Agenda, Their Vision, Your Future. Yeah, it's absolutely wonderful. In answer to your question, Darren, how can we support them more without the filthy criminals? Well, exactly what Phil just said. And that is, if you are able to put your hand in your pocket, please, they really, really not just need it, they deserve it. They really do need some support. There's nothing wrong with that. And there you go. Thank you so much, both of you, for being with us this morning. And everybody, make sure you watch that film. I will put a link in the description at the end of the stream. Take good care of yourself. Phil and Mark, lovely to have you with us.
Thank you. Been a pleasure.
Thank you. You too.
Thanks,
Take care. Lovely to have you. Thank you so much. Right. So I highly recommend that film. And you can all stop sending me emails now. Right. So look, I did it, right? Didn't I? Georgia Guidestones. That's the plan, says Mike J. They took them down, didn't they? They said they were struck and there was a problem with them. Right. What shall I talk about before we bring in our next guest? I want to talk about, I just said bum. I want to talk about, as mentioned last week, by the way, I have some deep concerns about the so-called return to blasphemy laws in the UK, which is spearheaded by a Turkish asylum seeker and a British Zionist organization. Well, there is now a new fear unlocked with this situation. Let me see if I can bring in an image to show you. And this, I think, gives us a good idea of how media works together. Right, let me just find this. Sonia, desktop, Monday images. So I think this is an interesting one. If I can find it. Oh, there we go. Yes, it is. Look, so this is interesting. Okay, so the Telegraph newspaper reported that there is now a threat to the life of this man who was convicted of burning a Quran. So what's actually happening is a very small group of people are generating a lot of noise about things that are somewhat troubling. So, according to the Free Speech Union, whose directors are Lord Toby Young and Israel fanatic Douglas Murray, the police have made this man aware, Hamid Koskan, that there is now a credible threat to his life. And apparently he was woken at 2 a.m. in the morning on Saturday morning. And yet somehow this piece managed to rock up in the Telegraph. Now, it's certainly online. If it was also in the print edition, that's even more extraordinary, right? Because newspapers have usually gone to bed about 10 o'clock the night before, right? And but yet somehow this story, they managed to cover it. And the Daily Telegraph has been covering a lot of this. Bear in mind, the Daily Telegraph is also Alison Pearson, who's very much involved with Toby Young. And they are both part of a company to do with Israel. And so there looks like an agenda here. Plainly, there does. Now, I don't necessarily doubt that this is true, that this man has received threats. He burned the Quran, right? And we know what happens when you do that, right? But this is about whipping up division. It is. I do not like it when a manufactured outrage is heading in a place of bringing in new laws, right? Mr. Young, a hack journalist, was recently made a lord. Okay, you do not get an invite to become a lord unless you are absolutely a part of the establishment. He is part of the establishment. The whole idea that Toby Young and Douglas Murray are somehow driving free speech in this country is hilarious to me. Well, it would be hilarious if it wasn't so sick. But anyway, they've managed to get this on the agenda. And it irritates me because I can see it so clearly. And talking about irritating, what was all that business about Zia Youssef, who resigned from Reform, and then 2 days later, he was back again. First, he publicly quit. Then he was publicly returned to the fold. They need him for some reason. Absolutely, they do. And by the way, it is back to a company being controlled, as you know. I know they did all this hoo-ha stuff about how we're going to kind of like decentralize it, and it's not going to be that, and it's not going to be that. But did Zia Youssef quit because the MP stood up in Parliament and the Reform MP, Sarah Poulton, I think her name is, and wanted a ban on burqas? Is that why Zia Youssef, who I think is a Muslim, is that why he quit? And why is he back in the fold? Anybody know? Anybody know? Thank you, Short Order Cook. We all choose to be here at this time to make sure humanity is awake and survives. Thank you. I'm doing my best, and I appreciate that super chat. Thank you so very much. And the WEF money bags, Paul. So Zia is a WEF man, isn't he? Film it. Oh, Zia Youssef also supports the burqa ban, does he? Well, that is interesting. Very interesting indeed. Okay, curiouser and curiouser. We shall see. I think that Reform are struggling to be probably something that they're not, right? Something that they originally promised their kind of membership. I think that's not what they're turning out to be. I think, as we can clearly see, for the most part, WEF rather interesting. Reform is still very much part of the kind of Westminster political class. I think that's the truth. Right. Yes, total nutter. I agree. Burqa ban is testing the water for other stuff. Sam says Reform is there to lead people by the nose. Deform more like, says Shug. I got you. And thank you so much, by the way, to this excellent response. I want to address this. Okay, so obviously this was our investigation on Friday, the death of Anthony Bourdain, and I want to loads of emails. Thank you. You love these live investigations. Now, I just want to be clear, right? First of all, I think one of the reasons you like it, because like me, you have no idea what's coming next. And that's the thing that I think I enjoy doing it, because it feels risky. And I am so sick and tired of doing broadcasting that is safe and pedestrian. And what I love about doing these live investigations is I've literally just got a series of notes, and however they kind of unfold is however they unfold. And I feel that it feels on the edge. It's what I've wanted to do forever. I love doing stuff like that. But I've had a load of emails from you. I've lost count of how many people have said, yes, please do Kate Spade. But also, a lot of people have mentioned the Clinton body count to me, both in emails and both in comments. Now, I want to address this because this is important. And I've had so many emails. Here's one I've got in front of me. I'm going to use Caitlin's. Thank you, Caitlin. Good morning to you, sweetheart. Thank you for sending me your email. And Caitlin addresses the issue of the Clintons and the idea that Anthony was said to have tweeted about Hillary Clinton on June the 5th. Now, June the 5th was when Kate Spade was said to have taken her life, 2018. And then Anthony Bourdain was said to have tweeted, I have information that will lead to the arrest of Hillary Clinton. And then, of course, he was dead 3 days later. So many people said, why didn't you cover that angle? I didn't cover that angle because it's not true. Actually, that's the problem. So here's the thing: is I'd gone through his Twitter timeline. I could not find it. In fact, the last tweet that he appears to have made was actually a day before, on the 4th of June. And it appears that he never made that tweet. And if he did, then somebody else had got into his account and deleted it. But I was not able to do due diligence on that. And that's why I didn't follow that through. But I know that that is a topic that many people have talked about, because obviously we know about the Clinton body count. And if he's actually tweeting, I have information that will lead to the arrest of Hillary Clinton, and then dies 3 days later, you might be persuaded to believe that the two were connected. Well, so would I if I had been able to find that tweet. And I couldn't find it, went through his timeline, talked to some friends who said the same thing. No, that was misinformation. That was used, that was spread around. Then I found a kind of like Full Fact, which also said the same thing. I don't necessarily believe Full Fact. I prefer to do my own fact checking, but I couldn't find it. I couldn't find it at all. Thank you, Vanessa. I truly appreciate it. But thank you to Caitlin and everybody for pointing it out, because it doesn't mean that it wasn't true. It doesn't mean he didn't say that. What I'm saying is it's now missing, and all the evidence would appear to suggest that the last time he tweeted was actually a day before. Tweets get deleted by agents. They do. And that is a point to remember, Blue Nomad. That is absolutely a point to remember. But I didn't want to carry information in here that appeared to be mis and disinformation, because it might take people in the wrong direction. But who knows? The thing about, our investigations is it's kind of open-ended. It's what's your interpretation of what I've said? Where does the evidence lead us? That sort of thing. And where the evidence didn't lead me on this occasion was Hillary Clinton. That doesn't mean that evidence hasn't led me to Hillary Clinton in the past. It doesn't mean that. She's very busy. Who owns the Wayback Machine? Who owns the Wayback Machine? Frank said, I watched the Bourdain Israel show and didn't see anything sensational. It wasn't necessarily that it was sensational per se, but what he did was he challenged the narrative, didn't he? He was prepared to go from Israel into Palestine. Yes. No, Craig, no, there really is. Craig saying, don't use their words, Sonia. No such thing as mis and disinformation, just opinions. No, Craig, there really is mis and disinformation. There are active people who are putting out mis and disinformation out there. That's not their words. That's a reality. And we have to face it. And none more so oftentimes than in alternative media, where people now literally make up stuff in order for them to be able to make money on X. I mean, the sheer volume of lies out there is phenomenal. And if that's not mis and disinformation, then I don't know what is, kids. So do beware. I'm always wary of that. I think we have to be very, very careful. I'm going to bring in my next guest now, something completely different. And I want to find out a little bit more about what he's doing. So let me just find him on my list. Here he is. Let's find him. Here he is. Jason Noble, how are you?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
Good to have you with us. You are the CEO of In One Place, which I confess, Jason, I'd never heard of until June. One of our viewers had said to me, please, can you get the people from In One Place on your show? I was like, what the hell is In One Place? So then I looked, and actually really interesting. So not so much a social media, sort of like a major networking. But one of the things that I think is really interesting and I think will appeal to our viewers is the whole idea is not just that technocrats and oligarchs are going to make a fortune from this. This is also about putting the person front and center so that they can sort of manage and navigate their profile and push it forward and promote it. I'm not explaining that well at all, Jason. So I'm now going to ask you to explain what In One Place is.
I'll certainly try. It's a concept that I've been working on for nearly 10 years. And when I originally set it up, I set it up on the basis that I'd worked out that Google wasn't quite what I thought it was. I'd had a few battles with Google. I got thrown out of their head office in London. I went in to actually try and speak to their legal team, and they literally went, Google's not here, and the security escorted me from the building. So I sort of worked out that Google wasn't quite what I thought it was. And then I started looking into LinkedIn and Facebook and realizing that all of that lot are completely controlled. And I'd set up In One Place for another different reason, but I sort of started to build alternatives to what all of the things that people use, touch points on the internet, if you like, and then combine them into one place. but actually took all the good bits of the ideas, like the idea that you could talk to people like on Facebook, but without all the censorship. You can search for things. What Google does do well is it provides you lots of information for free, but they generally advertise around you. So we've taken all of the good parts of the way that people use the internet, given them replicas of those things, but taken away all the bad bits. Where, part of In One Place, we've actually set up an area called the Awareness Foundation, which we've been sort of doing stuff since 2020, doing lots of presentations and talks. And I've been banned on YouTube, I've been banned on Twitter, I've been banned on Facebook. So we're banned everywhere. Yeah, I managed to get 5 accounts shut down on Twitter in one weekend.
Goodness me.
So, all of that sort of stuff has just emphasized more why we need a platform or platforms where you can trust them to be basically protecting your data. But secondly, to be able to actually say what you want to say or present what you want to present without someone coming along saying, no, that doesn't fit a narrative.
Obviously, we've got the issues with Ofcom, the online harms bill, all of that's not a bill anymore. It's an act now, obviously. How does that impact In One Place?
So one of the things that when I started In One Place, it was just as I'd realised that there was something wrong with the alternatives to those systems. But over the last sort of 5-6 years, in 2018, I started looking into the banking world. My background is actually investment finance for the last 20 years or so. So I actually started looking into the top 50 banks, because we've created a private currency, and I started looking into the banking system to try and find a safe bank to put sort of resources into. And I realized that all the banks are completely broken, and actually we've actually now have a thing where we teach people about the fact that banks don't actually lend you money. So over the last sort of 5 years or so, we've been helping people challenge things like mortgages and debts, because they are not what people think they are. And in that process, we've looked into the law to try and work out how to win those arguments, which has expanded into a whole other training program we have now, where we actually teach people or re-educate people about the way the world goes around. So these acts that they bring in are, they're someone's opinion of the way that you should behave. And if you actually read them, there's nothing in there compelling you to do so. Now, that isn't a common law sort of stand up to the system type of argument. That is simply the basis that that we all just sort of comply with these things without ever looking into why we have to comply. And In One Place has been structured in such a way where it doesn't have to necessarily comply with these things, because there's too many restrictions being put on without an explanation as to why those restrictions should be there. So it's not just defying things for the sake of it. It's a case of going, okay, explain to me why I can't post that there. Now, we're not going to allow on In One Place anything, there's not going to be any bad stuff on there, like really bad stuff on there. But if someone wants to turn around and say, I don't agree with this, or I don't think that's a good idea, or you might want to know this, that shouldn't be restricted. And these bills saying that there's harm, I'd like to understand what the harm is. I'd like to understand how you explain that harm before I'm going to comply with that, if you like.
And I think we need more of that pushback, don't we, really, from kind of like social media and website bosses as well. And you've got some incredibly interesting information. When I first looked at it, I was like, oh, this is a commercial site. That's interesting. And then I delved, which is nothing wrong with it, nothing at all. But then I delved deeper and I was like, wait a second, this has got some real alternative takes. So you have things like, for example, how to issue a notice of position and cease and desist. You have that sort of information available to people. You're exposing corporate and government lies. You talk about the safety or otherwise of genetically engineered food. You talk about natural magic. You have you have templates, MPs letters, you have presentations on the tax system. It's really good stuff. So my initial impression was, oh, there's probably a lot of money behind this. Is this like, I don't know, is BlackRock involved with this or whatever? So talk to me about the kind of like, because there'll be a couple of things that people watching this will want to know. One is, how can it benefit them, right? How can they use it? And two, can they be sure it is just not more of the same? So like, who's behind this? Because I think that's always important to find out more about.
I'm the creator of it. I'm still the majority shareholder in it. We do have a few small private shareholders. They are people that I've known personally for years. There's no big corporates anywhere near it, I wouldn't go near them with a barge pole.
Right.
There's an area on there called the Watch, which is sort of no censorship on our watch, if you like. I got banned on YouTube with a we actually did in 20, I think it was late 2020 or early 2021, a video called, or a presentation called COVID-19 Roundtable, where we actually managed to get together.
We're on YouTube right now, and you know what they're like. Yes.
Okay. Oh yeah, that video on here lasted 20 hours before it was removed. So again, it's still on there. It's had over nearly 500,000 views now.
Wow.
And it was discussing about the possible problems of that treatment. So the idea, I'm just trying to remember the question there, so I've got off track without.
How can it benefit people? Because
Yeah.
because what I was really want to make sure is that we're not looking at something that looks really kind of as if it's like local and available to us, and there's big oligarchs or black rocks or Larry Finks behind. So we've established that. So it's you and basically some smaller local businesses that you know, right? So that's what we're talking about. And so I think. So the other thing,
yeah, the watch is yeah, I was just going to say the watch is a video equivalent. So in there's a series of presentations under awareness presentations that pretty much sets out our stall for why we wouldn't be going anywhere near the oligarchs, if you like. So, anyone that wants to, there's 5 years of presentations, free presentations that are on there that pretty much set out what we're about and what we're trying to explain to people. We're very much against the autocracy and all the rubbish that goes with that.
And I think, I mean, I don't know if earlier we had Mark Sharman, formerly of Sky News, and actually as kind of a long-term newsman, and Phil Wiseman from Oracle Films. They're talking about their new film, The Agenda. So I thought you actually fitted in really perfectly as a guest to follow on from them today, because I think we have to create our own space. We're all absolutely sick of, our ideas being censored by people who generally have nothing to do with us, and for overarching agendas that we don't necessarily approve of. So is it small businesses that could come to you and get on the website? Talk to me about the kind of people who are on in one place.
Yeah, I mean, we've actually uploaded the agenda over the weekend because I tried to watch it. I actually haven't managed to get through it because there's adverts like every 5 minutes.
And they were saying that.
Yeah, so we've uploaded it. There's no adverts around it. So on In One Place, for example, you go and watch it on the watch, that you can go from end to end. There won't be a single advert. So we put that there. It costs us money if someone watches a video. So we haven't put any advertising. It will cost us money if lots of people watch it there. But we want people to see that video. So we are willing to do these types of things so that people have got a place where they can. Now in time, hopefully people will think, okay, well, I'll post something up and we can advertise around it. But at the beginnings only, I don't want to have that sort of cut down thing in the middle of it at any point. But we have, with In One Place is actually a series of ideas. When I first started it, everyone told me I was doing too many things. And actually I've learned not to talk about all the things it is. I sort of find the thing that might appeal to whoever it is. Now, if you want uncensored videos, the watch is an area. But we also have, for example, a business incubator that we've developed where we have a range of income streams that we've generated with inside of In One Place. And so if someone, for example, wants to, I help people with trying to minimize their taxes and things like that. Now, if you're self-employed, you just get taxed at source. There's no way to challenge that easily because you're picking a fight with your boss. But if you want to have a bit more sort of ability to stand on your own 2 feet, being self-employed helps with that because now you've got a little bit more control over where your money's going and everything else. So actually building your own business is a way to do that. But many people have no idea how to do it. So we've built like an incubator called The Business, which is inside of it. So, small businesses can come in, they can use the marketplace to advertise their product. We are building out a very sophisticated alternative currency system. So the ability to trade with one another without using the fiat system, which is completely and utterly fake. So we've got things like, the ability to pay in gold for a cup of coffee, for example. And we also have a range of other services. But one of the things we've also built is a banking solution over the last 4 or 5 years. But I've been, for the last 7 or 8 years, telling people the banks are all a mess and they're going to crash at some point. But trying to be a bank while saying that the banks are a mess is not an easy combination. So we've actually, just in the last 3 weeks, actually managed to sort of negotiate terms with someone where we're going to create an alternative banking solution where you could still spend your money in a shop with a card, if you like. Not that I'm a fan of cards, but if you really wanted to, you could spend it with a card, but where the money is not in a bank, it's in your pocket. So it actually is sort of like you custody your own funds, but actually spend money, or can walk into a shop and spend those money. So you don't have to trust a bank with your money anymore, which is becoming a very big problem for many. I know tons of people that are having, difficulties getting their own money out their own bank. So we have a range of solutions. The idea is to build a community which is free to join, free to connect, and free to do lots of things. But if you want to sort of use certain premium services, then you might choose to advertise to be at the top of a list, for example, but then build a solution-based services, alternative banking, alternative everything's really, alternative food supplies, so that those things which we call the networks can then be fed into the community. So it's an ability to find out that I know people that are very good at fixing certain illnesses that you can't fix. Let's say it that way. These people should be
Very
out
well
there, but where do you find them, and how do you interconnect with them? These are the sorts of things that I'm trying to do. I'm trying to get that information that we're all starting to learn into a place where you can find it, but then you can trade between each other, because if you don't have the full solution, you might have one part of it, but then someone's still paying for it in a thing where someone will shut that person's bank account down if they find out about them. We break away from that, and that's what I'm trying to use in one place to do.
I like the sound of that. Tell me, because obviously with people like Musk's and all the like, Musk, for example, wants to turn X into the everything app, which sounds almost similar in so many respects, but anybody who's done even a cursory glance of research into Musk would not advise it. So I think obviously everybody is that I know of, and certainly viewers of this show, we are looking for alternative ways that we can connect with like-minded people as well. So what do you think sets what you do apart from everyone else? And I know that's quite difficult when you ask somebody that, but what do you think about that?
I think the Elon Musk is being peddled as a free thinking, bought X to save everybody from censorship, yet we're still censored on there. I've called him out on the fact that I've got 5 accounts that have all been taken down, and as much as he's relaunched David Icke and Donald Trump, small accounts like ours, which weren't massive, 20, 30,000 followers, are still banned. Why are they banned if it's free? LinkedIn is owned by Bill Gates. What on earth are all the Bill Gates hating people on the planet still on LinkedIn? Why aren't they protesting and leaving there? And LinkedIn actually charges a fee for something that In One Place offers for free. So why, if you hate Bill Gates, why wouldn't you leave LinkedIn, create an account on something like In One Place, and talk to each other for free, rather than feeding Bill Gates's ego? We're about to launch we've never had an app, and it's actually slowed our growth down, but we've just been for the last year or so building an app, and we're pushing it out this week. And inside of that app, we're releasing, and one of the reasons it's taken us so long is because we've built a fully working alternative to, say, WhatsApp or Telegram. Now, Telegram's perceived to be safer to use than WhatsApp, and Signal's supposedly safer than them. None of them are safe. You actually dig into them for 5 seconds. So again, safe communications is going to be one way where people can develop new things outside of the system, because they're watching AI now. AI is all over WhatsApp. Like, you can see it. It's just horrendously in your face. And it's not just helping you, it's watching you. And that's the problem, is that if you don't find something that you can genuinely trust to not do that, that can back up that it's not doing that, then you're going to constantly be watched. And any person that ever stands up and says, why exactly do I need to do this, are going to find themselves being shut down before they ever get any airtime, if you like.
It is so tricky, isn't it? It's like we live in an age where I love the internet. I mean, I can literally speak to people all the way across the world and here, right in front of an audience. Phenomenal stuff. I mean, I really appreciate that so much. And because of the nature of my work, I do have equipment that is probably makes me heavily tracked, heavily surveilled, heavily traced, all manner of things. And I accept that because, as we were talking about in the agenda earlier, really we're in a control grid already anyway, where we're tracked and we're traced and we're surveilled. I mean, that is just a reality. And the job we have to do now is as much of a pushback as possible. And that's kind of where I see your role in terms of, like, you know, the social media sites and networking. It's like yours feels like a pushback against the oligarchs. And I hope I'm right about that. So, Jason, before you go, what do you want people to know about In One Place?
I mean, again, it's free to join. It's free to connect. There's nothing in there that's tracking you at all. It is, you know, give it an opportunity to have a look. It takes a little bit of getting used to, because it's not, you know, people land on Facebook or LinkedIn, they just see a feed of people's talking. We don't do that. You have to go and find the bit that you want and just give it the time to look around and see. But you know, for me, it's an alternative to what we currently use, and really what we should be using is those things that have got the big people on it, to tell them to leave and go to something that is going to fight to give them privacy and freedom and solutions. If we don't build solutions to stop them from printing money out of thin air and buying everything out and then controlling us with it, for example, nothing will ever change. We're going to constantly be told, you know, sorry, this shop doesn't like you very much because it's part of our gang. You know, probably one of the most demoralizing presentations I ever saw was a thing called Monopoly, which is again on the watch. And if you watch it, it talks about how Vanguard own everything, and everybody thinks that BlackRock does, but BlackRock's owned by Vanguard. And there's a presentation. But if you look at it like that if they control so much, the only way to really stop that control is to build something new. What we're trying to do is build the infrastructure, if you like, of starting that with safe communications, safe payments, sort of safe ways of interconnecting and trading one another. If we start doing that, we break away from the controlled grid that we're all plugged into. The agenda is a great explanation of the mess that we've got. What In One Place is basically the tools to break away from it if we choose to. And the more people that join it, the more we can add more and more ways to break those strangleholds.
That's a really positive, wonderful, uplifting note to end on. Thank you so much for joining us this morning, Jason. We do appreciate it. Everybody, Jason Noble, CEO of In One Place. I will be signing up this week. Yes, I will. There you go. Take good care of yourself. Lovely to see you, Jason. Have a great week. Take care.
Take care.
Thank you. Thank you. Wonderful, wonderful, interesting stuff. And I know that these things, they often bring with them amount of cynicism, because it's like, oh my God, it's the same thing over and over again. But is it though? Is it? I think I'm going to give it a shot. I personally am going to give it a shot. That sounded a lot of good stuff to me. I've done some background checks on them, and it looks like they've got their stuff together. So I will be putting a link in the description at the end of this stream. How are you all? In the comments. And what have we got? Hey, lovely. Oh, the hoax has arrived. Thanks, Jason. And my ex, I don't know what they're talking about. Right. What do we want to talk about? What have I not talked about that I want to talk about? I think we should talk about, we should talk about the continued fallout of Elon Musk and Donald Trump, because I think that that's not going away anytime soon and is likely to go kind of intense and a bit mad. So obviously what we're actually dealing with. So I was talking to some sources, and they say that we're not actually being told the truth of what the fallout is actually about. What I've been told, if I can find it here, is that the fallout came because Elon wanted a say over who was going to be running NASA, because that would be somebody that he would work with for SpaceX, which is heavily subsidized by the American administration. And Donald Trump vetoed who Elon wanted put in place at NASA. And that's what kicked it all off. That's what I've been told. Reba wants to know, do I think it's just for show? No, I don't think it's just for show. I don't. And but so I'm going to work through it. And I do think that because even when they do their shows and they do their distractions and their dramas, all of that, they do that. I admit that. But we're talking about two personalities who absolutely were inevitably 100% going to fall out. It's impossible for men or people, women, men, or ever, like Donald Trump and Elon Musk to get along together for a very long time. That's just not the way it's going to be. So I just want to refer to some of this. And one of the things that we're hearing is, first of all, that black eye that Elon showed up in the Oval Office on his last day with, actually doesn't just have a black eye. He actually hit the whole side of his face on where the black eye is all bruised. And according to reports, this man, Scott Besant, is the one who did it. That's according to reports. Now, I don't know whether that's true or not. What I'm pretty damn certain of is it wasn't Elon's 5-year-old son, little X, who did it. His face is bruised all the way down. And so it's being reported in the USA that it was Scott Besant who did it. But see, the thing is that Musk is someone who has absolute simmering rage. I mean, if he wasn't the world's richest man, I would say, be careful. He's the kind to go into a school and do a shooter, because he just comes over really unhinged. And obviously what he did was he then had the fallout with Trump. And they said it was because Trump was going to be removing subsidies from electric vehicles, not removing them, but sharing them out more amongst petrol and diesel, right? And Elon didn't like that because he's really pushed the whole electric vehicle thing. Now, bear in mind that Elon being involved with Trump is really against a lot of what the MAGA people think, but they went along with it because they thought it was for the greater good of Trump and for the party, right? That's what they thought. And then after that, literally days after Elon has left the White House, DOGE, which was never an official department, it was just something that was made a Department of Government Efficiency, the idea that he'd go through with this and he'd cut the fat. But what he also did was he got rid of people who were investigating him. All of this stuff I reported very early on. And so Elon has been receiving huge government subsidies for a very long time. And in fact, Musk said if there's one way, because now in the fallout, they've gone backwards and forwards. Trump's gone on his own Truth Social and said stuff about Elon. Elon has gone on X, said stuff about Trump. But Elon said on, I think this was on Thursday, Friday, Elon was like, I can't stand it anymore. And that's when it all came out. This massive, outrageous pork-filled congressional spending bill is a disgusting abomination. And that's when it all kind of came out into the open. And then Elon followed that by essentially saying, time to drop the really big bomb. Real Donald Trump is in the Epstein files. That is the real reason they have not been made public. Have a nice day, DJT. And I read that and I thought, well, first of all, we've been saying that. We know that. I mean, I'm in no doubt whatsoever that the delay is because of the involvement of the president of the United States. And it doesn't make him a pedophile, right? But I'm pretty damn certain, because he was pictured endlessly, repeatedly with Jeffrey Epstein. And Elon Musk was pictured with Ghislaine Maxwell, although didn't he suggest that she'd photobombed him or something? Anyway, Elon Musk has now deleted those tweets, right? I mean, literally. And even though he said, and I kept it, he said, mark this post for the future, the truth will come out. Yeah, but not on your platform, mate, because you deleted it, right? And the other thing that some people had said to me was, come on now, Biden, for all intents and purposes, we don't believe for a second that he was really in charge, but Biden, for all intents and purposes, was in the administration before Trump. If there was anything damning on Trump to do with Epstein, wouldn't Biden have already released it? Well, yeah, on one hand, yeah, but what if the files would also implicate his party and the people within his party, right? Maybe they were all in it together to keep the Epstein files, whatever these Epstein files are, okay? But just go back to his black eye. What we were told was that Scott Besant, okay, rugby is obviously in Trump's American administration, rugby tackled. He's the Treasury Secretary, but he rugby tackled Elon Musk. That's what we were told. But that's not just a black eye. Absolutely, it's not. I mean, American newspapers are watching closely, and whether they have any of the information, who knows? But I think it's very interesting. And I think what we're getting some of the truth now. Some of the truth. The reality is Elon Musk bought his way into a position of power. in Trump's administration. And according to several of my sources, he finally lost it when he didn't have the power to put in place who was going to be in charge of NASA, and therefore somebody who was going to continue referring him for billions of American tax dollars. That's what we're saying is the origin of this. Whereas Trump is saying, well, Elon was wearing thin in the White House. And we know that obviously Elon's businesses, Tesla, absolutely took a nosedive through his work. But Elon was also suggesting that there should be a new American party. And this is the arrogance of some people with money, right? He literally came from South Africa. He was actually an illegal immigrant, and he goes to America and then attempts to usurp its president because they fell out. Just wow, such arrogance. I mean, it is such arrogance. This is not over. This is going to continue. Absolutely, it will. And also, as people say, so let me get this straight. Elon Musk was more than happy to give money to Trump while they were still on the same side, even though he appeared to think Trump was potentially a child abuser. But then he drops it like, wow, this is the big thing. Anyway, don't trust any of them. That's my opinion. To a degree, yes, of course, it is absolutely theatrics. I mean, these are theatrical people. But I don't think this is going to be resolved anytime soon. I think the situation, what I'm hearing and what many people are hearing is Trump simply won't talk to him now. He simply won't talk to him. And I think what happens is Elon comes down from whatever he's on, wakes up and like, oh God, I did all those tweets, deletes them because he's like, whatever, tweeting under the influence of Ket or whatever. He's definitely probably under some kind of influence, but he goes absolutely insane on there. And I actually know people who logged back into X who would close their account. I know 2 people who opened new X accounts over the weekend just to see this fight between the pair of them. That's how it gets people. Anyway, what's your thoughts on that, kids? What's your thoughts on that? And I think they're putting on a show, giving us something to talk about and hoping we have enough to be distracted by. Yeah, Sam, there is huge volume of Elon's on X, right? A huge volume. And can't make head nor tail of it all, but I don't need to. Right, I want to briefly refer to, excuse me. You can hear my voice going funny again, right? No, Mr. Mac, I don't have any Lucy Letby updates other than I did see, weird. This was weird. What is that BBC, ex-BBC journalist, John What's-His-Face, who's got involved in the Lucy Letby case and who actually Tommy Robinson showed up? What's his name? Because he had some kind of gathering on Saturday and there was this really weird picture of this woman on the floor, like crouching down. It's weird. It's weird. So no, I don't have any updates. Sorry. And Pantomime. His cars are also rubbish, says Lenticular Cloud. I've got you. Jones doesn't believe any of it. I see. Fine. All the world is a stage, says Sal Misra. Got you. Lots of clones. Didn't Elon only have a set term anyway? So it's not that he's been let go, rather finished his contract. No, Reba. So he was never going to be there permanently. That is absolutely true. It was always going to be temporary. But I think what they've done is they've fallen out over the NASA situation. And also because Trump, the people who vote for Trump are by and large not interested in electric cars. There's only so much that Trump can be compromised to his own followers. And he's been hugely compromised over the whole Tesla and electric vehicle issue. And MB, that is true. And this picture, thank you for reminding me that. They want Trump out and ultra-Zionist JD Vance in. And this picture, I think if a picture tells a story, this is an interesting one, isn't it? It's like Trump heading out the door. JD Vance hasn't got a clue what he's supposed to be doing because obviously Elon Musk wants to get JD Vance in now and wants Trump out. And this is the thing is you have to ask, right? I'm not an American voter, but is this for the good of the American people, what Elon Musk wants to do? No, absolutely not. Yes, he is, Randy. He's earning absolute billions, but I think they're going to cut that now. Jackie says the big story is Palantir, and yes, I mean, in part it is, but I don't think we've got the full story of Palantir. Now, I'm supposed to be joined on Wednesday by two guys, do a Q, and I'm not quite sure what's happening with them right now. They said they're coming, and now I'm waiting for them to get back to me. So we shall see. Right. I want to refer to this because I think that this is, I think it's interesting, but I also think it's unfortunate. Here it is. Simone Biles versus Riley Gaines. So this happened over the weekend. So what we have is brilliant gymnast Simone Biles, and she decided to pitch her trans stall as late as 2025. Yeah, right now. And she aimed her dart right at Riley Gaines. So Riley Gaines, high-ranking swimmer who bravely spoke out against men in female sports, and Leah Thomas in particular. And I don't agree with Riley Gaines about much. I don't. She's not my kind of person. She's all into kind of like deporting, and she's very Trumpian and all that. But on this issue, I have absolute admiration for what she's done. Simone was famously abused by her coach, Larry Nassar, and she tweeted about Riley saying, "You should be uplifting the trans community and perhaps finding a way to make sports inclusive or creating a new avenue where trans feel safe in sports." First of all, it's not Riley Gaines' job to do any of those things, right? Riley Gaines is doing the thing that more sports people should have done, and that is stand up to be counted. Simone Biles is the most decorated Olympic gymnast in history. And if she'd had to go up against a man, she would not be. Chances are she would not be. And I can't stand, I feel really disappointed in what Simone Biles has said. And one of the reasons, first of all, she makes it clear that they do need a separate category, right? So she kind of defeats her own argument. But she then went on to actually trying to body shame Riley Gaines, comparing her to a man. Now, the weird thing is that is deflection, because Simone Biles throughout her career has horribly been compared to a man. So don't start body shaming somebody when you know what that feels like, when you've been on the receiving end of it. And I thought that was really, really actually poor sporting attitude. I hate this attitude. On this one, I'm absolutely with Riley Gaines. And it is such a shame to hear Simone Biles coming out like this. But what she's actually doing is she's pulling up the ladder behind her. And I can't stand that attitude. We see it all the time. We see it with people who have come into the UK, as one example, as immigrants, and suddenly they're like, don't allow anybody else to come in. I hate that attitude. And it's the same that Simone Biles, hugely decorated, has not had to compete against a man pretending to be a woman. And now she wants to deny other females following in her steps the opportunity to compete only against women. We are physiologically different. If I have a fight with a man, he may well win. Right? He may well win unless I do things like kick him in the knackers, which I probably would. So don't try and fight me. But you take my point. The point is that men are physically stronger than us. And that is none more so more obvious than in sport. So it's really, really poor of Simone Biles to do this. And that said, I don't support people using her abuse against her, by the way. And they're trying to prove the point by saying that, yes, some men can really be dangerous to women, and women shouldn't have to share intimate spaces with any man. And that included, what about the man who abused you? Don't do that. Don't go down to Simone Biles' level. Please don't. But yeah, that was horrible. You haven't heard knackers for years. You got it now. Yes, absolutely, that's what I'd go for. Well, you would, wouldn't you? If you're in a fight, right, where you have to protect yourself, you go for whatever you consider to be the weakness of that person. That's what I was taught about fighting. Rowie, I'm going to have to give you a little bit of warning. Some of your comments bit too strong, mate. Bit too strong. You're going to have to rein that back in. I do not want to see that kind of level of degeneracy in our comments, mate. I'm telling you straight. Right. Director, let's see. Cash Patel. Thank you, Rowie. I appreciate that response. Thank you. There's some right, wrong, and comments since the lack of mods. The thing about that girl on fire, I take your point. If it gets too extreme, look, I wanted this to be about a free flow of comments, right? my mods were brilliant. This has absolutely nothing to do with them. This was about the importance of letting people say their mind. But every now and again, I switch on and I'm like, what the heck is going on there? Oh, okay. Oh, okay. I'm getting a lot of messages all in the same tune from people in the comments. I've got you. I've got you. I've got you. Right. So we have to be obviously careful, but right. I put out my warning and that will do for now. Right. So yeah, but so I take your point, Girl on Fire. I absolutely do, but I don't want things to be moderated around here. I believe that the internet should be able to moderate itself, although clearly sometimes that doesn't happen. But if there's ever, because I can't obviously see the comments on a complete basis as I'm on this show, but if there's ever an occasion where you've just thought, oh, that's too much, she needs to be aware of that, email me, alert me, okay? Essie, I hate the fact that we can't even say certain words on YouTube. We try. Yes, there are no mods anymore. No, we're trying. Dilip says you have to moderate language on YouTube, Sonia. Well, actually, not necessarily, right? And so obviously I really don't want to see profanity because that could potentially get us in trouble, right? You do, Emma, you do have a choice to block them, and that's what you should do. John Sweeney, Jack, remember Jack Sweeney, right? Okay, there's some concerns going on here. I'm going to have to address the concerns of the people in the comments. Just bear with me 2 seconds, you wonderful people, because if it gets to a stage where there's one situation where somebody is creating a problem, then I have to deal with that, right? I have to deal with that. And I will deal with it. And I have. There you go. Dealt with. Right. That's that dealt with. Now back to the show. You can do many things around here. They didn't call me juggler as a child for nothing. Right. I want to also briefly refer to, did anybody see the Joe Rogan and Kash Patel podcast? That also was interesting, I think. Have I got an image of it? Let me just see if I've got an image of it. There we go. Rogan and Kash Patel. What good is we can all deal with it. Block them. Yeah, absolutely do that. Right. Let me get back to that. Now, Simon, why does Kash Patel always look like he's just swallowed a football? Yeah, because he's always like, it's weird, right? He's director of national intelligence, obviously the FBI. He's the king fed. He told American voters what he was going to do if he would be lucky enough to get into power. And lo, he's not now doing it. I know you're shocked, right? He appeared on the Joe Rogan podcast. Some of it was frankly painful. I didn't watch the whole thing. I couldn't. It prolongs the pain of everyone realizing that Kash Patel sold out. He ain't your man. Rogan asked him about Jeffrey Epstein, whether Patel really thought it was suicide. I mean, he's not going to say no now, is he? This was more about solidifying his position that Epstein did, in fact, off himself. And regarding putting out evidence, he said they're now using a new tactic because you've had Pam Bondi, the Attorney General, saying, I've seen all the videos, they're awful. And you've had these people repeatedly saying, yeah, we're putting out the information. They haven't. And they're now using a new tactic. And I find it objectionable. And as soon as I saw it, I got it, right? And what they're doing is they're using the victims as a reason not to reveal information, right? So what Kash Patel says, we're not going to re-victimize women. We're not putting that out there. If you want to hate me for it, fine. So what they're trying to do is they are censoring what people see, and they're doing it as an issue of being virtuous. Let's protect the women. You don't give a flying monkey. I don't think that is a thing, but you know what I'm saying? You don't give a flying fig about protecting the women. And it was essentially it was painful. I was actually chilled listening to him because I realize what a hardcore establishment man he is, and how easy it is to I've put that in the wrong way. Let me just say how easy it is to make people believe that you're a good guy. How very easy. Kash Patel had people fooled, right? They really believed that he was going to, shut down the FBI and do all these manner of things and expose the Biden administration. But the problem is, and we know this happens, is that a Biden administration is the same people. That there will also be a lot of the same people who are around a Trump administration. It often moves on like that, except the main names that you see, the faces on the side of the jar, right? But the other thing that a lot of people keep saying is Epstein in some kind of witness protection? Because it's not a new thing to say Epstein didn't die, right? That's not a new thing. But you know what? We're dealing with people who are so duplicitous, you cannot trust. I wouldn't put anything past them at this stage. And I think that's where we're up to, right? I think that's where we're up to. And Kash Patel was like, yeah, we're going to be releasing a video. And but they want to get it ready. They want to get it ready for the people. And I have no idea what is going on, other than I struggle to believe anything that any of these people are saying. But the Kash Patel thing, when I saw him on Joe Rogan, now I've never been a major follower of Joe Rogan. I have never watched an entire Joe Rogan all the way through, ever, right? And one of the ones that I did enjoy was when Dave Smith was on and handing Douglas Murray's ass. That was wonderful. That was very, very enjoyable. But for the most part, I'm not a major Joe Rogan fan. He's kind of like, he's not really my kind of gig, really, not for the most part. And I don't think he's as compromised as like an Alex Jones, as one example, but he's definitely there to solidify the narrative of Trump's administration. Seems many of these people have body doubles, and who knows what we are watching. I mean, this is the thing, right? This is the thing, is I think we've, in such a short period of time, we've reached a point where we can't even believe the evidence of our own eyes anymore. Because when you go on social media, and I think probably X is the worst platform for this, right? And that's why I say, when I can't remember what was said earlier, there's no such thing as disinformation. There genuinely is. And I think that X is creating a lot of it. So you go on and you see Trump talking about something, you're like, there's no way he could have said that. And then you find out it's all AI generated. Now, I don't think that should be allowed. I do not think that AI should be allowed to create clips where people are falsifying what somebody said. I think that's a problem. I know there's lots of problems with AI, but that is definitely one of them. Have you seen how many Bidens there were? Yeah, but don't forget the fit Biden, who only lasted for one photo session, right? It's awful. Yes, now Marco, he did. Alex Jones did. Did he even get into Bohemian Grove and take the picture, the famous picture? They're just, what's that? What would Sonia's wrestling name be? And what would core skills be? What's going on here? Joe Rogan is tiny. I mean, these guys are tiny, or that's just a very bad picture. Martin said it's hard listening to an episode about bow hunting for 4 hours. I know it goes on, right? Anyway, so I think we all know where we stand with these mega podcasts now. Mega, and they are mega podcasts for a reason as well. They are allowed to rise for a reason. Again, same thing. I want to briefly refer to the Diddy trial, because a lot of people have said to me, "Oh, there's so many famous names attached to the Diddy trial." No, that's a lie, actually. And what they've been doing, and it's sneaky. It's really what they did with Madeleine McCann and Christian Bruckner, and you know what I'm talking about. Let's just bring in an image. And so what's happened? There he is. Let's bring him in. Sean Diddy Combs, although I will still call him Puffy a lot of the time, because that's how I knew him when I met him and interviewed him on several occasions. So they are now entering, I think, the 6th week. Last week was I think last week is probably where they're going to get in trouble. So look, they have now filed for another mistrial. This is the second mistrial attempt that they're going for. And because they're pushing it back against the claims of one of the people who was a witness, and that is Brianna Bongalan, who's a longtime friend of Cassie Ventura, ex-girlfriend, who's really at the center of all this. And what happens is where these names get attached. So that's what they're going to apply for the mistrial. And do not be surprised if they get it. And do not be surprised if this is thrown out, and do not be surprised if he walks absolutely scot-free, because everything that I've seen so far, the prosecution case is shite. It's rubbish. I'm a litigant in person, and I feel I might have been able to put together a better prosecution than they have. Now you have to ask, is that by design? Is it like the same old thing with the Epstein files? Are there so many famous people potentially implicated that they don't want the truth to come out? But at this moment in time, they have almost entirely focused it towards what appears to be a domestic violence, domestic romantic scenario gone deadly and badly wrong. Not deadly, but gone badly wrong. And what they've shown of him is how horrible he can be, for example, allegedly dangling people, out of windows when they've upset him. But this is not shaping up to be a powerful case against him. It's not. And, the thing is what you're dealing with are people who largely do not get a lot of public sympathy. So prostitutes, male prostitutes, girlfriend Cassie, who is obviously, she garnered a lot of public sympathy when we saw a video of him beating her in a hotel corridor and pulling her back by her hair and everything. But she hasn't come out of this particularly well either, because she's been seen very much as somebody who was also initiating some of these so-called freak-offs. And a lot of people, they made a big deal about the whole issue of freak-offs, about his parties. But the way that this case has gone is that the freak-offs were just very much an intimate affair. They were nothing that involved famous people. But I'm going to talk to you about some of the famous people who have been dragged in, who have nothing to do with this. And this is by design, 100%. So one of the people, for example, that was dragged in was Madonna. And you will find pictures of Diddy and Madonna online. You will. And the reason that her name was dragged in was Diddy's ex-assistant said she worked for Madonna after she worked for Diddy. And that's it. But people go, Madonna's in this court case. No. This is how they do it, right? They'll mention these names. And don't forget, a lot of the same assistants will work for the same people, but it doesn't mean that they're involved. It doesn't. And another example, of who they did that with was Leonardo DiCaprio. And again, you will find images online. I wonder if I've got one here available. No, so I'm not going to do it. Images online of Diddy and Leonardo DiCaprio. Leonardo DiCaprio famously always dates very, very young females. It's a bit of a joke, quote unquote. And the only reason that Leonardo DiCaprio was mentioned, he was mentioned in text to Diddy from his ex-assistant. None of these people are accused of being involved or of any wrongdoing. And so that, I think, is in its own way deceitful, because it makes it seem like it's something much bigger. Same thing with Beyonce and Rihanna. They have also been mentioned last week, and that was in the testimony of Brianna Bongolan, who on her testimony, Diddy wants to get this thrown out. And or the reason that Beyonce and Rihanna were mentioned is it was claimed that the two had been working on a clothing line together. And that's why they were mentioned. They are not accused of any wrongdoing. Do you see how they're trying to mislead us with this whole idea of big names? Honestly, whichever celebrity that they mentioned last week, almost all of them were to do with either them being mentioned in a text. None of them were to do with the freak-offs. None of them. Absolutely not. And so I think that this is not going to pan out how they intended, or maybe they intended it not to. Maybe this is a show trial. Maybe this was, he had become too big for his boots, right? And needed pulling down. Maybe whoever it was, the controller around him, decided that he was no longer worth saving. Maybe that was it. But we don't see, people can make up all manner of things, right? And unless we have some kind of evidence for it, then I'm not going to pass it around, in the same way as I wasn't going to pass around that Anthony Bourdain had said that about Hillary Clinton when I couldn't find the evidence of it. Because I think that does create mis and disinformation. It's one thing to say, I was told this, I really don't know if it's true, but you've got to be careful, because defamation laws are a very real thing. And honestly, Diddy's dream team, and that whole idea was nicked from previously to do with O.J. Simpson. But his dream team is probably going to cost him in the region of about $15 to $20 million, whether he wins or loses, frankly. It's going to cost him a fortune. Maybe he's given up his sources, right? And I'm not sure safe is a word you can ever associate with that word. Any updates? No, Top Smoke. And Top Smoke, you're asking me again about somebody who's been rumored to have behaved in a certain way, but where is the evidence? I'm not going to talk about, and I saw an account on X, like using this man's name and saying, yeah, he's this, that, and the other. The only reason why that account, although accounts like that aren't being sued, is they're not of big enough interest. If you're a big account making those kind of statements, you would get sued, right? You'd get sued. But there is loads of video evidence. No one's flower. That's the thing. And see who is funding them. Well, let me just hold on. I like that comment. I want to refer to that. What did that just go? Thank you, Craig. I'm doing my best. And no, Frankie, you can't just say because somebody worked at the BBC that they are automatically a nonce. I mean, that is poor, to say the least, right? That's poor. No matter how, no, I can't support that. There is loads of video evidence. There is absolutely loads of video evidence to do with Diddy. They seized it. So where has it gone? Right. So I think this is now turning out incredibly to look like a show trial. I really do. And I'm not convinced that they're going to get the results that they thought they were going to get for it. Right. Beautiful people, other than to say the very reprehensible arsewipe that is David Beckham will finally be getting his knighthood this week. He's done everything he humanly could, but he may lose it at the last minute, they're telling me. I don't think he's yet been knighted. He might be knighted today. He may lose it at the last minute because he and his wife have been blabbing about it and promoting it because they can't keep their damn mouth shut. They sell everything. They leak everything. But yeah, they've wanted for a very, very long time to be knighted, and now they're going to be. And David Beckham and Victoria Beckham are kind of like they're celebrities, and they are establishment arsewipes, and they are sycophants, and that's that. Right. Before I come on to the last thing, I just want to refer to this. This is Jade. Good morning, Jade. Thank you for sending me your email about your daughter transferring to school. Now, I've met Jade before. I met her at the Jam for Freedom event. She said, I received the email forwarded below from the secondary school that my daughter is due to start attending from September. The form in the link is long with a lot of nosy questions. It really is. And I looked through it and I was fairly outraged. And thank you for earmarking the parts that I should look at. And Jade said, when I got to the end of the form, it asked me to tick a lot of consent boxes and to confirm I had read the sections in the school policies and agreement booklet. Well, Jade didn't. And so then the school chased her, and for good reason, because these I don't think I've ever seen such a kind of like social contract that a parent has to fill out before a child is admitted to secondary school. It actually shocked me, Jade. And I thank you for sending it to me. And I say to you out there, to any of the parents, if your children are going to secondary school this year, have you received a similar one? And this covers things like use of photographs, video policy, cashless catering, NHS emergency outbreak data sharing policy, all of this. It is sinister. And Jade, I completely agree with you. There's no doubt about it. It's sinister. I don't blame you for putting off signing it. I'm not at all surprised that the school chased you, because the problem is, Jade, is you represent the resistance. Even one person in a school who refuses to sign these kind of forms represents a resistance, and that can pass on. Other people can pick up that vibe as well. So anyway, the school came gunning for her, and they were like, the original deadline for submitting your child's admission form has now passed. However, we have not received this from you. We will be very grateful. Gave her a deadline for last week. I'm not sure if she's filled out or not. I said, I'm going to mention it, Jade, see if any other parents have received forms like this. This is a totalitarian form, and I'm in no doubt whatsoever. The NHS emergency outbreak data sharing consent makes me sick. You even give advance permission for your children to be immunized. No, what? This is outrageous. Tell me, people, have you received a similar form for your children? Let me know. Please let me know. I'd be very, very interested. Thank you for letting me know about that, Jade. I was outraged, especially the cashless catering. And they claim that their catering have been cashless for 20 years. What now? So that all of that's very interesting. Obviously, it's going to get to the stage where if your children who are at school haven't had their, vaccinations or whatever, they'll be in trouble on their social credit score and they won't get any lunch. That's the kind of madness we're dealing with. That's what that form said. And Jade, I want to personally thank you, mother to mother, for being part of the resistance. Thank you. I really appreciate that. And donators, thank you as ever. You're absolute stars. We're almost there on getting merchandise available. Don't hate me. It takes so long. It's never a priority for me, but I know that you would like some, so I will get that sorted. And I want to just say this. It doesn't happen very often, but every now and again, people who have donated to Wake Up try and tell me what to do. This is a very, very bad idea. I'm not talking about suggestions, right? Which I absolutely welcome. I'm talking, they literally try and boss me around as if they are paying me to cover specific things. And if they don't get me to behave as they want, they will lose their stuff with me, which they do. But that's not how it works around here. That's how mainstream media works. Mainstream media is compromised. It's bought and sold. I'm an independent journalist. I cover what I consider important. And this is no disrespect to anybody who supports me. I truly, truly appreciate it. The fact is 99.9% of people who donate to Wake Up do not make those sort of demands on me. But every now and again, somebody will come along and they'll say, I don't want you to cover this. And I think you should be covering this. And why do you cover that? And I'm sorry, I don't accept it. Actually, I'm not sorry. Sorry, not sorry. I don't accept it. I will not be told what to do by anybody. I've been doing this stuff for far too long. You know, I'm like people. And also, if you've asked me to invite someone on and I've said yes and they haven't appeared, that's not down to me, right? I will have invited them and either waiting for them to confirm or they've given me the runaround. That happens also. So there you go. I just wanted to say all that. And I think it's very fitting that I'm going to end today's show with a viewer's letter. And it's from Ronnie. Ronnie, I don't know whether you're male or female, and it does not matter, right? Because you're not making any claims one way or another, but it's from Ronnie. And Ronnie said, Sonia, I'm not a psychiatrist, and I don't claim to have the answers as to why people are the way they are, but you baffle me. I have watched you for a decade. You're a sensitive person who cares about humanity. How can you do what you do without breaking down or losing your mind? Love, Ronnie. Well, it's not always been that way, Ronnie. Obviously, there have been times when I've been deeply impacted by some of the things that I've covered. I've had to learn. I've had to learn that just because you stare into the abyss, do not get to the point where the abyss stares back at you, right? And I've had times when it's brought me down and I've had the blues. I wouldn't go so far as to say that the job had brought me depression. I believe I'd had depression earlier in my life as kind of like long-term depression from my childhood. I don't believe that's what the job has done, but I do know that some of the information that I cover in this job is extremely hard to process. It's very, very difficult. And I was actually having a similar conversation the other day as well, exactly about this. And so it's really interesting, Ronnie, the timing of your email. And what I will say, and I think this is important, is you need to have a good degree of I don't give a in order to be able to do this job. Absolutely. Whether that is the way that the public receive you or the stuff that you're covering, I have to have a degree of detachment where it's like, I don't give a. I have to. That is how I function. That's what makes it important. And it can be beneficial, to detach from situations and not become overly invested in every detail or outcome. So like, for example, if they're having a fight in the live chat, sometimes it's not a good idea for me to get involved. Let them tough it out themselves, deal with it, move on, right? So sometimes it is best to look at things from a long distance. And also, you know what? One of the things that I think I was deeply affected by is I had compassion fatigue. And people do have compassion fatigue, which is why I go back to what Chris Rock said, and that is there are a lot of victims in this world. But the emergency room is full of people with paper cuts. And he's absolutely right, is that people will sell on all manner of things these days. Either they're looking for your sympathy or they'll sell on sex, obviously. Very few people sell on talent and skill, which is such a pity. But when I had become overly invested and didn't know how to detach myself, I did become compassion fatigued. And I don't ever want to become like that. I want to be able to look at each story in the round and on its own merits and not just go, oh God, it reminds me of something else. But it can get like that. And also, when you have a healthy professional detachment, enables you to be able to manage any stress and anxiety that may come as a consequence of your work. And a lot of stress and anxiety has come as a consequence of my work, obviously. I've been under police investigation. I've been now in the High Court for the last 5 years. So obviously these things are stressful, right? But I consider them part of the territory. Now I'm not stressed by any of those things. And whatever happens, my attitude now is, well, this is part of my job, part of my territory, and I accept it. And also the other thing that happens, Ronnie, by the way, by the detachment, is it can help you navigate and avoid those kind of emotional roller coasters, because we are fed an absolute constant glut, aren't we? And it's designed to make us viscerally and emotionally react, right? Either be outraged, this is so wrong, they're stopping the Freedom Flotilla to Gaza, or this has happened. And a lot of it is designed to make us react in that moment, which can also be very distracting. So again, I had to create a reasonable distance to myself. But one of the things I think, Ronnie, that has helped me so much is I don't spend a lot of time on social media. I pretty much hate social media these days. And I want to personally thank Elon Musk for curing my Twitter addiction. But for the most part, I think it's really draining. I think social media has a part to play. And one of them is bringing people together. Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant for that. But you spend too long on there and you scroll, that doom scrolling that takes place. It can really bring you down and it can make you lost. So all of that, Ronnie, I cut from my life in order to be able to help me not lose my head when I'm doing what I'm doing. And ultimately, it gives me clearer thinking. That is the reality. That's what it does. How are you? Right. What didn't Frankie say? What didn't Frankie say? What didn't you say, Frankie? Our brains were never meant to receive so much stimulation and information. Yeah, Gab was good, but they cut us off from that. UK column news at 1 p.m. Good. Thanks for doing that. We like UK column around here. They're friends of ours. Thank you all. Thank you all very much. I truly appreciate it. Loved having you with me today, as ever. Really appreciate it. Cheers, Hoax. Have a lovely day all. And Frankie, feel free to email me and clarify what it was you were saying. I'll be more than happy to correct it. I just can't find it here. Thank you all. It is, Stephen, so much doom mongering on social media. Absolutely it is. Thank you all. I really appreciate it. Lovely to have you with us. And I just want to finish with this, because this goes back to the importance of IDGAF. And that is, when you do not seek or need approval, you are absolutely, unquestionably at your most powerful. Don't forget it, kids. I will see you on Wednesday, 5 p.m. as per. Have a fantastic Monday and Tuesday. See you Wednesday. Thank you, Wade. Thank you, Em. Love to you all, people. Have a fantastic day. Take care. Thanks for being here. Take care.